Hello, welcome to the Snap UK, your home for NFL news on this side of the pond. Most of us are here this week, and with me in the doghouse are Griff, Gilo, and 4 Inches.
Hello.
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 Jim isn't in
Is this a tribute because Leslie Phillips died today?
Ding dong. Jim he's not with us this week. He's sat at home
dismantling his shed. As it turns out, he forgot to do that.
No, he sat at home in a huff because he can't talk about Nick Bosa this week. Because the 49ers, the Giants, Cowboys, Broncos, and Steelers were all on a bye. But you can read Jim's musings on our website, thesnappodcast.com, and follow his and my thoughts throughout game days on our Twitter at thesnapuk.
I prefer it when he doesn't understand it.
I know. Yeah, it's... we'll be hosting next week. We'll have to
Once
help
again
him
this
out.
week, I came up with some good tweets to send out, and John edited me before I was allowed near them. Believe that?
I believe it's called racism.
No. There was no racism.
You just
Mild accusation. That was...
You just asked me to tweet Lamar Jackson to go fuck himself. I'm just saying, it could be accused of that. So, this week we saw some of the biggest names in the league humbled, whilst the worst in the league either turned up or blew up. Another mad week of games with a whole host of tight outcomes. 5 games decided by 3 points. A re-emergence of one of the league's best running backs. One team not bothering with the second half. And an old man blaming everyone but himself. But we'll start in the AFC, where the team that were topping most people's power rankings, the Buffalo Bills, had a very up and down game as they were narrowly beaten by the New York Jets.
Defense.
Yeah, their defense turned up, and the offense didn't mess up as much as last week against the Patriots. So, for the Bills, have they got enough to win these narrow games? And is that Jets defense elite?
I'm going to come in first because I'd like to quote Josh Allen.
Go on.
You can't win when your quarterback plays like shit.
Apparently, he is being assessed for an elbow injury and is unlikely to practice this week.
So,
on the back of that poor performance.
So let's not forget, this was the first game to kick off this week on Sunday. And John and I fell around laughing because on the opening kick, the Jets kicker squib kicked it about 8 yards along the floor.
It was horrible.
So the Bills started in like the Jets 40. And then Josh Allen promptly threw a pick in the red zone. That was the start of his game.
And it was a dumb pick as well.
It was
He's
a
not
terrible pick. And he never really recovered. He put nothing impressive on paper in this game.
He was good on these. He was good with his feet, wasn't he? But yeah, there was nothing.
There was nothing through the air. It was extremely disappointing. You know how I had to apologise to the Jets about 3 weeks ago for writing them off?
Quite right now, you're not the one who should be apologising.
This is true. Somebody has done something disgusting in this room. But moving
Well,
on.
don't look at me.
It's normally you. I know it's not you this time, but anyway.
Yes, you apologised.
It's difficult to have this conversation without breathing in, but I'm trying.
I know. Yeah.
So I apologise, but I'm still walking that back on Zach Wilson. He is not the reason that they won this game.
No, he just didn't mess up enough.
He didn't mess up. But basically, it's not the Bills' offense or defense. The whole team didn't turn up. The Jets' defense was gifted big plays. Josh Allen was holding the ball too long. He got sacked for a loss of about 20 yards on one play.
Right at the end, wasn't it?
He got the ball back with a minute and something on the clock, at least a minute and 50 on the clock, and did nothing. They just couldn't march anywhere.
He didn't have a drop fumble.
Yep, a drop sack fumble, for the 20-odd yards they went backwards.
And then he had no choice. I mean, he did have the longest throw of the year. He threw it 69.3 yards, but he did throw it to Sauce Gardner,
who
batted it away.
Now, the Jets' defense is not elite, but it's in the next group down. They have elite games rather than elite stretches.
I think it's becoming elite, isn't it?
It has the potential to,
It's
definitely.
got better and better as the year's gone on. And Salah, in terms of his coaching, stop coughing like that. Salah's coaching has gotten better and better, isn't it, as well? Because he's
the message is getting through, I think.
That division is so tight. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's the same as what you always get when you get tough divisions. It's the divisional games are just hard to pick, aren't they?
It's the tightest division in.
Yeah, but let's be honest, the
league
Bills
right now.
shat the bed here,
Oh,
like someone else just did. It's very apt
Look,
thing to do.
if there were plants in here, they'd be wilting. But yeah,
They were terrible. It was the most disappointing performance of the weekend, and that says a lot. Because the Bills should have won this game. They had the opportunity to win this game. It's not like the Jets marched away from them. They scored 3 points in the first quarter, 7 in the second, 7 in the third, and 3 in the fourth quarter.
This is not the most disappointing result of the weekend.
I mean, it is for a team that should have won comfortably. The Bills
There's
should have
another
won
team that should have won
comfortably.
comfortably.
Well, we'll get to that.
I agree with you that the Bills should have won comfortably, but this is where you have to start giving the Jets some credit for how they drafted as well.
They are one game back from the Bills.
yes.
Well, that division is tight, but the difference.
Shame it's the only thing tight we can talk about at the moment.
The difference was Zach Wilson stopped throwing the ball away every time someone tried to tackle him. And that's what they've got to learn to do. These young quarterbacks, you've either got to throw it high off the field or you hold on to it and you take the hit. And that is what they're trying to coach into Zach Wilson, which is why all of a sudden they were in this game rather than being 10 points behind.
Yeah, so Wilson was 18 of 25 for 154 yards and a touchdown. But key to the game was the fact that Allen was 18 of 34, 205 yards, but 2 interceptions, no touchdown. He had a running touchdown, 36-yard run, which is the longest touchdown run of his career. But he just didn't get it going through the air at all. And this Bills team will struggle because it's not like they've been a great running team at any point while Allen's been there. He was their lead rusher as well, 86 yards off 9 carries. But they haven't solved the run game issue through free agency, not free agency,
trade,
trade, which has just passed. And so that's their big vulnerability. On days when Allen doesn't show up through the air, what do they fall back on?
I'd still like them to add some more pieces in the air because I mean, if Stephon Diggs doesn't have a game,
They don't use Dawson Knox enough.
no, Gabe Davis, despite what Jim says, is not a decent number 2. He is a streaky player who, you might get some.
He's a Deshaun Jackson.
He's a Deshaun Jackson type.
I wasn't even going to give him that much credit. I was going to say like Marvin Jones. Just a couple of games, he'll turn up with something amazing, and then you won't see him again.
He's a less injured John Ross.
No, I'm not letting you get away with being positive on John Ross.
If your run game is struggling, though, you should use your tight end more.
Yeah.
I should use my tight end more. We all know that.
Nice.
People have been lauding we'll get to them later, but the Patriots defense for not giving up a lot of points this season. The New York Jets defense has only given up 10 points more this season than the Patriots defense. Like, they are running Belichick very close, and this is because Salah's message is finally getting through, and Sauce Gardner is in the top 3 or 4 cornerbacks in the league already.
Yeah,
comfortably.
That guy with elite stats in college comes in with elite stats in the NFL.
Doesn't always transfer.
No,
I know, Jeff Okuda.
DeAndre Baker.
Yeah.
Who is now going to miss time this season.
What was the guy who went in the Raiders? You could just name anybody the Raiders picked, but there was the cornerback the Raiders picked in the Damon Arnett.
Oh, Arnett, yeah. They also cut Jonathan Abrams today.
Jonathan Abrams, yeah. We'll get on to the Raiders.
Oh, yes, I'm sure we will.
This is what I was going back to earlier. The Jets deserve some credit for what the pieces they're building because players like CJ Mosley are fantastic, but they're not gonna take you to the playoffs.
Yeah.
But
they've been clever as well. Brees Hall out, Robinson in,
scores a touchdown. But more to the point, Michael Carter stepped up, 12 carries, 76 yards and a touchdown. They have got to lean on that running game.
He wasn't a bad running back anyway.
I don't think they had to bring in another running back necessarily. I like Michael Carter.
They had the opportunity to
and it's
do him.
It's the right move.
Good business.
Takes the pressure off Wilson, and it worked this week. If he can play like that every week, they'll sail into the playoffs. I just don't think he can. And the mistakes will come back round.
The Bills are going to lose games, but they'll make the playoffs, won't they?
And who was right about the Jets?
You were, Paul.
Yeah.
But this
they
reminds
the number 1 seed. They might have to go away in the playoffs.
That's the thing, and this reminds me of last year. Remember, they got shut out by the Jags 9-0. They just have games where Josh Allen Josh Allen looks like the rookie Josh Allen, rather than the
it's
MVP
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen.
Yeah, always for the Bills.
But yeah, staying in the AFC East, the most competitive division, the Dolphins do enough to beat the Bears.
An improving Bears.
Finishing 35-32, both offenses blow away some shonky defense. And in the end, a blocked punt return for a touchdown is enough to split the teams.
And who returned it for a touchdown?
I can't remember his name.
It was Rip Van Ginkel.
Rip Van Ginkel.
Nice.
That's what Gary did earlier.
He absolutely did.
Neither defense could do much.
No.
But the Dolphins just could not stop Justin Fields scrambling.
Well, we mentioned that earlier this season that they had a lack of roster depth, and it seems the answer is you don't need a roster. Just let him run.
What did he run for? 178 yards?
A record-setting 178 yards and a touchdown. He absolutely did. Now this, and I was going to do my weekly apology this week to Jim, who isn't here, so technically it doesn't count. But Jim was making the point earlier in the year that you have to let the young quarterbacks stay and play, which is why he wanted your young quarterback to stay and play. He thought Trey Lance, right, have a bad first 6 games and then he'll start to improve. Justin Fields has been terrible for a season and a quarter.
A season of 4 games.
Right. And all of a sudden, over the last 3 weeks, he's looking really good. He's the highest scoring fantasy quarterback in the last 3 weeks.
It's confidence.
Yeah.
Like, all it is momentum with these players. They obviously can do it. It's about believing they can do it in the NFL and getting used to the speed in which they need to do it in the NFL. Some of the players come in and they settle into it much quicker. Mahomes did, for example, after a year sitting. But like, you put some of these young quarterbacks into bad teams and expect them to play straight away, and they get hit and hurt a lot. I think it takes them a long time to rebuild their careers back through that. And if you stick with them, I think maybe there's more of them that could make it than we see.
Well, the example will be Geno Smith, who we'll get to later. Maybe they should have ridden that out. But with Justin Fields setting a record on the ground, 178 yards, he also threw 3 touchdowns without a pick for the first time. Like, because once they realised he was dangerous with his legs, the Dolphins had to drop and wait for that. And that meant that then the receivers were actually getting space, meaning that his inaccurate throws could be corralled for touchdowns. It sets up and gives the Bears something interesting to play with, showing you how dangerous he was. The other main running backs, Montgomery and Herbert, scored 59 yards on 21 carries between them.
David Montgomery is a piece of shit. Honestly.
But tell us how you really feel.
No, he's supposed to be a number 1 running back. He gets paid a lot of money, and he's fucking useless. He's ruined one of my fantasy seasons.
There, that's what I was waiting for.
397 yards and 2 touchdowns he has this season at 3.7 a carry.
Oh, see? Just like I told you.
Did they have to sort of wait a bit for sort of Justin Fields to be like denaggied? So like...
That's some sort of operation you have.
But like...
Going to be denaggied. Didn't Jim's dog have that done recently?
Just remember though how bad the whole organisation was as a whole last year. Like they had...
Don't talk to me about bad holes. I've just dealt with what Gary's done.
But look at what they've got given away on defence.
Wafted away now. Can we let it go?
And like,
Burning eggs.
they've lost Mack, they've lost Quinn, they've lost Roquan Smith. The defence wasn't even good last year. The offence was anemic, and giving the guy a chance to get over the fact that he was playing with
terrible players,
the destroyer of quarterback hopes, as an offensive coach, he's I think he just had to sort of ride it out.
Back to the point Gary was making about David Montgomery. Khalil Herbert, who's seen as the second running back there, 98 carries this season for 586 yards and 4 touchdowns at 6 yards a carry. Why is he not being promoted ahead of Montgomery? I don't know. Montgomery, I think, has a higher ceiling, but Herbert right now is the hot hand, and they're not doing enough with that. But it's another win for the Bears. They're 3-6, but they're a good 3-6.
No, the Dolphins won.
Sorry, not the. Yeah, sorry. The Bears rather are 3-6, but they're a good 3-6. They're competing and actually managing to keep up now, which means come the end of the season, there's a chance they're at what we would call 500. Obviously, with the 17th game, it doesn't go, but they're actually developing much more quickly than I thought they would.
And they're a team that's got a high cap for next season, so they've got money they can spend, and they've got a quarterback that people want to play with. So they become attractive as a franchise.
Adding Claypool as well, I think it's indicating that offensively they're trying to rebuild things. They've got a defensive head coach. They've got some money to bring some players in. Look, let's see what they do in the draft. It's the Bears. They'll ruin it.
And Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are both still ridiculous.
So Tyreek Hill is on course for 2,180 yards. Yeah,
it was 2,114.
Yeah,
entering this week, but he's increased his average. to the point where even with the extra game, if he keeps going at this rate, he'll beat Calvin Johnson on average yards per game anyway, even with the extra game.
He's averaging 14.5 yards a reception.
That's disgusting.
I know what disgusting is.
And Waddle is not far behind that.
No.
There's something you waddling out in here going on. There's some sort of joke there.
Yeah, it's. I think the Dolphins are doing what they need to do, which is win. And they don't. This is the form of a team that are getting to the playoffs. You know, they say the form of champions. Clearly, I don't think they're going to be the champions, but you win a game.
They made good moves in the trade right
Yeah.
at the end.
And the thing is as well, like, I think if it comes to playoff football, no one's going to want to play the Dolphins.
Especially not if Tua is
They
continuing to
could
be
blow
inaccurate
you.
as
They
this.
could blow you away quite quickly. I know they can't defend very well, but you know they've added Bradley Chubb. He will add some.
It will help. Yeah, it will. Help.
Eventually, you know they have some players. You know,
Did you know that in terms of QBR, if you want to use that as an index, 80.2, Tua is first.
Yeah, he was first going into the game. I
he's,
knew
he's
that,
still first in the league at QBR.
He's got Hill and Waddle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still got to throw the ball to him.
Yeah.
It's seriously impressive for a guy that there were still question marks over coming into the season.
It's like Drew Brees, isn't it? He had Michael Thomas, who gave up football 2 years ago. But
No, he didn't give up. He gave up playing. He didn't give up being paid.
but again, so Brees was, QB rating 1 for a long time because he only had to throw the ball a short distance. Michael Thomas, who went and got great yardage. Tyreek's the same. Julio, when he was at the Falcons in his prime, was the same.
yeah.
There he is, 8 yards away. I'm going to make you look great. Just use what you've got around you.
Yeah, and it's
Mike Evans is making Tom Brady look like he's 43.
almost 40 yards this week.
Yeah. Elsewhere in the division, the Patriots they do enough to pummel Sam Ellinger and make regret his career choice, and then typical Patriots, they wheel Nick Folk into position a few times, and they beat him 26-3. Disappointingly, you didn't get the shutout.
No, it was disappointing. Just before I move on to that, the one thing I wanted to say about Tua, he's won 13 of his last 15 starts. Now that's mightily impressive.
Who was the first on the Tua train?
I wish he'd have stayed on the train. Right.
I think it was the owners of the Dolphins the season before, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, one of those he won while seeing 3 or 4 people at a time as well, because his brain was mangled.
He just likes to dance.
Yeah, the Patriots, the defense is excellent. They scored 26 points in fantasy this week, mainly because Ellinger couldn't save himself from a sack if he tried, and managed to throw a pick 6. And look,
That's the most expensive O-line.
yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts about what Indianapolis are doing. My first thought is Jeff Saturday going to stick with Sam Ellinger, or is he going to say, "Hey, Matt Ryan, can you come back, please, and try and score some points?"
Back in a heartbeat.
Because the Ellinger, I get it. You don't want your offense hamstrung by a statue, but it's not like Sam Ellinger has been running around making plays.
Well, Taylor was out as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. I get it. But
Doesn't matter.
It
He's
feels
been useless all year.
McAdoo and Manning, didn't it?
it just, none of it was working well. 15 of 29 for 103 yards and an interception, but he was sacked 9 times, right? So he lost 60 yards on those sacks, which means he actually finished with 43 yards net.
The guy's useless.
Well, I don't know about useless, but it's not good.
The Colts are useless. That'd be it. But yeah,
And like they were building a good roster. They are, it's just they're wasting DeForest Buckner.
yeah.
Right.
But no, it is.
What are they doing?
It's just a load of people stealing a living
So
right now.
let's look at the Patriots briefly then as well. Mac Jones, 20 of 30, 147 yards and a touchdown. He was himself sacked 4 times. It isn't working, and the whole fan base wants to see Bailey as a payback, because at least he looked interesting. This offense is so dull.
All the fans want to go back to the Zap
They do.
zone.
They do. They want to go to the Zap Zone, but it's just really dull.
That's such a
such
a niche reference.
It's half a dozen runs, 2 completions for 8 yards, and a field goal. Nick Folk's got like 50 field goals this season.
You are dull to watch.
Yeah.
You are a
It's
bad team.
so
really.
bad. It really
You're
is.
a bad team that has got a lot of experience of how to win. It's just it's ugly and it doesn't taste nice.
It's Mourinho.
So Nick Folk this season is converting field goals at a 90.5% conversion ratio. He hasn't missed an extra point yet, which is not hard because he hasn't scored many touchdowns. And he's got 77 points, which is third amongst kickers in the league this year. That is not what you would normally see from what we would term a good Patriots offense. Normally you'd wheel out Stephen Gostkowski twice in a game for 6 points and that be it. It's all coming off the leg of Nick Folk. If he goes down injured, we're done. Absolutely done. Because he's putting up prime kicker stats for a man who's 38. He's the same age as me. And he disappointingly has much better hair than I do. But
Well, we
Speak for yourself.
we know somewhere in London you can go.
That is true, we do. He was picked in 2007, Nick Folk, I've just seen. Look, the Patriots are still bottom of their division. That should not be
Only
glossed
one
over.
game back.
Yeah,
as
one
well.
game back.
One game back, all because
What was there?
the
Two
Jets
games
beat
that
the Bills.
separate the whole
We're
division.
we're at 5-4, and the Bills are top on 6-2.
Who's got the best divisional record?
I'm just
It would have
looking.
been the Bills before they lost.
Well, in our division,
Yeah.
it's the Bills, 6-2.
No, but I mean like interdivisional because that'll matter a lot.
Oh.
If it's a tight division.
I think it's still the Bills.
The Jets.
Is it?
The Jets.
Nice. They've won
Yeah.
more away than they have at home, the Jets.
I think the Jets have played all their divisional games.
Oh, really? Wow.
If they could just do nothing but
They've
play,
played 6 divisional games already.
could they play the Jags and the Texans every week now until the playoffs?
Oh no, I'm looking at conference. Sorry, I'm in the division. In the division, it is Jets have 2-1, Dolphins are 2-1, Patriots are 1-1, the Bills are 0-2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that could matter.
Another player making great strides for New England as well is Jonathan Jones at cornerback. Now, we let Stephen Gilmore go and we let JC Jackson go. Stephen Gilmore's playing okay for a bad team at the Colts. And JC Jackson is now out for the rest of the season on the highest cornerback contract there is. Is this bog standard Belichick just taking...
It's what he does.
If he took Paul, for instance, could he turn Paul into a viable cornerback in 6 games?
No.
Probably make me a decent fullback. I'm chonky.
Not cornerback, no.
Let's not say he could turn one of us into a decent cornerback.
But it feels
he
that
can
way.
just pick a random bloke from the undrafted list and turn them into a good cornerback. And in his system, he'll just know how to pick on young quarterbacks as well. Him and you are very, very similar in that you both hate rookie young quarterbacks, and he just wants to destroy their careers. And I'm all for it.
I mean, also, he's been around for 50 years of defense. He's the Palpatine of the NFL, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, so let's not.
So
For the Colts, Frank Reich has gone.
I mean,
They've
option
given
did
up.
they have?
They've given up on him just blindly throwing darts in the hope of one day picking up a win again.
They're 3-5-1 with the most expensive O-line, the leading rusher from last year. They had multi-time Pro Bowler and Super Bowl losing quarterback Matt Ryan, who Reich handpicked. Now, he has handpicked the last 4 quarterbacks to play for the Colts, and none of it has really worked out. Matt Ryan was more disappointing than Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, but I'm going to say Wentz was better than Matt Ryan.
I don't think Matt Ryan got enough of a chance.
I don't think Matt Ryan got enough of a chance behind what is... He went there thinking, I'm not going to have to move. This O-line's amazing. So if Jeff Saturday, who's going to come in as the interim head coach, can get the O-line to congeal and actually stand up rather than turn into a bunch of revolving doors, Matt Ryan will be back and Matt Ryan will be successful. Nobody would be surprised if he came in and threw more touchdowns than picks and they won half a dozen games the rest of the season, would you? You wouldn't be surprised. Like, he just needs confidence and protecting.
They should.
Yeah. So you wouldn't be surprised, but you can't tell me they're going to do that with Sam Ellinger at quarterback.
No.
Their best hope is still Matt Ryan. Absolutely.
I'm surprised you make the point of a rookie quarterback not being good enough.
Shocker.
But Jeff Saturday has...
circumvented the Rooney Rule and come in.
Well, it's not... Yeah. Jim Irsay when asked the comments, it said, "Well, we are fortunate that he was available," as if like everyone else they wanted is just like busy on Sunday.
The Rooney Rule doesn't count for interim head coaches, which is why it's very specifically interim head coach.
And that's why I said the word circumvent.
I'm glad he doesn't have any NFL experience. I'm glad he doesn't know the fear of this league. Says
I'm amazed you didn't laugh at the word interim. It's almost like you didn't notice. Have you seen as well that he's appointed as offensive assistant a 30-year-old coach with like no experience in the league?
You're telling me a man with no experience is supporting people with no experience?
Yes.
They want to be picking first so bad. Yeah. But let's move on to that. From that car crash, let's move on. So let's go to the AFC North, where Joe Mixon is the MVP of this weekend, scoring 5 TDs in a mullering of the Panthers.
In a what?
Mullering. They beat the Panthers 42-21 in a scoreline that flattered the Panthers because they didn't really have to do much in the second half.
Garbage time, wasn't it?
Yeah. This signals the end of PJ Walker as a starter in the NFL.
Apart from they've already said he's going to start next week.
Then they're going to lose next week. But they're probably just thinking, we really want that first pick as well. Like,
But why? They've already got 3 quarterbacks. They've already got 2.
let's not go there. So this game was well over before halftime. Mixon's had already got, at that point, 4 touchdowns and 43.1 fantasy points.
It was great.
The Bengals still trail behind the Ravens, though, who easily overcome the Saints in the Monday night game. Both these teams were missing their best receivers, Jamar Chase and Mark Andrew, but humbled their NFC South opponents. Is there anything we can say about the Bengals-Panthers?
Bengals, interestingly, are exactly the same spot now as they were last year, entering the bye. So, considering the old Super Bowl hangover curse,
So
it's not a bad place to be.
Joe Mixon became only the 16th professional to score 5 or more touchdowns in a game. Who holds the record for the most with 6?
Patriot.
Nope.
It's like Eric Dickerson or something.
No, older than that.
Tomlinson?
Nope. Anybody else?
Jim Brown.
The Juice.
No. Gale Sayers.
Oh, no.
And Gale Sayers scored 6 touchdowns on the day a guy on the other team scored 5. So imagine that for a game. I can't now remember the guy's name, but yeah. So
Was it Leo Sayers?
Sadly not. No. He did make me feel like dancing though. So, so that would be impressive to watch 2 guys score 11 touchdowns in a game. Look, what can you say? The Bengals are very up and down, but if they can put all the pieces together like they did coming out of the bye last year, then yes, they're a threat. Their division is not that great. They should be nailed on for a playoff spot, really. Like, the Ravens are good, but the Steelers are terrible, the Browns are terrible.
The Ravens have lost like 3 games they shouldn't have lost. The Ravens should be home and clear, really, in that division.
They should be in the same place as the Vikings.
Yeah, they should be really, really way out in front. And I think the Ravens are the best team in that division because the Bengals O-line still isn't good enough.
I think
He still gets hit too much, Burrow. Yeah. Like on the whole, there's games where it's okay, but he definitely gets smashed too much.
He does.
I think you're beginning to see that division kind of reaching where it's going to be at the end of the season. You're seeing 2 teams pull away quite comfortably, and the Bengals will only get better because that's a brand new O-line. So the more time they have to practice, the better, I feel.
Of course. So Mixon's full stats, 22 carries, 153 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. And through the air, 4 receptions, 58 yards and a touchdown. That's mightily impressive. On the other side of the field, the return of Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
It was garbage time as soon as he came in. It didn't matter. He came in for the whole of the second half and it was already garbage time.
Do you mean we saw the beginning of Bake Bortles?
I mean, that is his new name. So Bake Bortles, 14 of 20 for 155 yards and 2 touchdowns. But to be fair, he was playing with the same players as PJ Walker, and this was decent Baker. I get it. I get the garbage time thing, and I'm not saying he's going to be amazing. And they've already said PJ Walker starts next week, but there's a good chance you see Baker in the second half next week because PJ Walker's had 1 good career game.
Yeah.
There's no point in bringing Baker back halfway through a game because that's just what does it achieve? If he has another bad game, then they'll go, we need to get back on the winning train, appease the fans, put Baker back in. That's what'll happen.
They have
he won't go
they have
back
to.
in the middle of a game.
John was talking me through the most expensive teams to visit as a fan. Where was it the Panthers ranked, John?
Fifth.
Fifth. The fifth most expensive team to visit as a fan.
If you include like
Parking,
buying a beer and a hot dog, as well as the ticket.
A flight to Carolina.
No, literally.
No.
Literally, just ticket, something to eat and drink, and parking. They are the fifth most expensive team to visit.
I can't remember how much you told me it was.
Do
It was
they even do gold?
$240
ish.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To go and watch that heap of crap. They've got no running game. The wide receiver room. I mean, who the hell is Raheem Blackshear? Anyone? Who?
That's a Madden name generated player, isn't it?
He had more receptions than DJ Moore, which is ridiculous. He had 4 receptions for 40 yards. I've never heard of the guy. He might be very good, but like you say, in Madden somewhere. I don't see what the Panthers have got. I like Steve Wilkes. I hated what happened to him at the Cardinals.
Yeah.
But I just get the feeling he's another one of these decent coordinators, not a decent head coach. It just isn't going to work for him.
And coming back from the impromptu break there.
We've established the Panthers are the drizzling shit.
Yes. Yeah. So, The Bills shit the bed. The Panthers are the drizzling shits.
Happy birthday, John.
Thank you very much. Staying in the AFC, the Chiefs. They overcame the Titans in a tight primetime game between two of the contenders for the AFC number 1 seed. Another 2017 game here with the Chiefs coming out winners in overtime. The Titans are still well in control in the South, but in the West, the Chargers remain hot on the tail of the Chiefs, with Austin Eckler being the star in their 20-17 win over the Falcons. Elsewhere in the West, the Raiders have a great first half and then stop playing, losing another 17-point lead, this time to the Jags, eventually losing 27-20. So, in the Chiefs-Titans game, like that's just two good teams effectively battling it out. Is there much we can learn from this one?
What we can learn from this one is if Ryan Tannehill had been playing, they'd have beaten the Chiefs because Malik Willis scored 80 yards from 5 of 16 passing, got sacked 3 times for a loss of 23 yards, and couldn't get the passing game going at all. Derrick Henry was superb again, 115 yards or 17 carries, 2 touchdowns. They led into the fourth quarter. They gave up 8 points in the fourth quarter to take it to overtime, and you go to overtime with a rookie quarterback who doesn't look ready. Now, Malik Willis is one that I think will be very good in the future, but this was not the season. He was supposed to sit, and this is why, because he had nothing going for him. But this was a day where Patrick Mahomes went 43 of 68 passing, 446 yards, but only 1 touchdown, 1 pick, not a good pick. Was sacked 4 times. But this, on the Chiefs side, it was all about the fact the run game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 4 carries, 5 yards. Isaiah Pacheco, 5 carries, 5 yards. Jerick McKinnon, 3 carries, 4 yards. They've got nothing as a run game. It's not just the O-line. It's just the fact the running back stable isn't good enough. And Patrick Mahomes is trying to do it all. And on games when that doesn't quite work, they're going to be taken all the way by a team led by their second-choice quarterback. Yeah, this should never have been a close game.
Mahomes still, won it for him at the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
And showed why he is elite. And I think the thing with the Titans is they're probably one of the teams where you can plug in a very inexperienced quarterback. And Griff's looking at me in a very strange way.
I'm not looking at you at all. Did you notice the 19th best receiver in the league, Bobby Trees, 0 of 0 for 0 off 2 targets?
But the point is, Derrick Henry can basically play with any quarterback, can't he?
Yeah.
Of course he can.
And mean that any quarterback can get away with throwing 100 yards. And because the defense is decent at the Titans as well, they're going to be in the game against most teams whilst Derrick Henry's fit.
Yeah. I think also
that's all that really proves.
Yeah.
Kelsey and Mahomes are still the main weapons on offense. If you can stop them, then you've got a real chance against the Chiefs still, which is a shame because I think the Chiefs have got a lot of very good things. I think their defense is better than last year, actually. But they do need to get that ground game going.
Yeah, the ground game is abysmal, quite frankly, at the moment.
I also think they need to give one of them a chance. You can't give somebody 4 attempts and then rule them out, move on to the next guy. You've got to give somebody a chance to get a rhythm.
Is it just me, or is there a lot of quite smaller running backs these days?
Well, they're supposed to be more elusive.
Yeah.
So, yes, there are.
But they
There
get
are,
hurt
but
more, don't
I'd
they?
like to see more power backs. Like, where's
I think.
where's your feast mode?
The right
Marshall
combination
Lynch.
is the small, flighty running back who can hit the hole quite hard, but that's not what they've got on the Chiefs' side. The Titans, by the way, finished without a wide receiver recording a catch, making them only the 4th team in the last 20 seasons to do so.
A wide receiver hasn't caught a catch there since October.
Well
It's
done.
appalling.
It's
I mean, luckily they have. Probably, like, in terms of effectiveness, the best player in the league right now, which is Derrick Henry.
yeah, but
No,
one.
Tyreek's the best player in the league at the moment. He's the best running
They
back.
have the best
Oh,
running
no,
back.
I mean, you could take Tyreek out of Miami and they'd still be an okay team. You take Derrick Henry out of the Titans and they're screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Titans' pass catchers averaged 1.5 yards of separation on their 11 targets, which is the worst by any team this season.
They did get rid of A.J. Brown, which
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
really dick move to do.
But they also did bring in a first-round wideout.
Who wasn't A.J. Brown?
Oh, no, he wasn't A.J. Brown, but a first-round wideout should still be able to do some things. You look at Justin Jefferson, first-round wideout, drafted at a lower position.
Look at Jalen Rager.
It's true, absolutely.
I know.
And both of the teams Jalen Rager's played for are 8-0 and 7-1.
Yep.
So
It's but yeah, the draft is a talent lottery. The people coming in are not sure things.
673 yards. Want to guess what that is in this game? 673 yards.
Penalties.
No.
That would be a ridiculous number.
Oh, well, I think this is equally ridiculous. That is the combined punt yardage in this game.
Yeah, that would have been my next guess.
673 combined punt yards between Ryan Stonehouse and Tommy Townsend. Who sound like they were boxers in the 40s. Yeah. that is insane.
I mean, that does sound like a PAF News article.
Which newsreader character that you had the other week? I can't know what his name was now. Doesn't matter. You did come up with a
Should we
great
go
one.
on to the Chargers? Who
Chargers?
I argued for the Chargers a bit last week because you lot were all, dissing them, not playing that great, but their record's okay.
They are.
They're winning
They're still
games.
shit though.
They're winning games in spite of Brandon Staley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah.
And they're missing some big players with injury on that defense.
And on the offense,
Yeah,
no Keenan Allen, no Mike Williams. There's no wide receivers, quite frankly. There.
Well,
they
you say
have
Eckler nearly got player of the
Josh
week.
Palmer.
Come on then. Josh Palmer stepped up and was excellent this week. Like, they didn't have a lot at wide receiver, I grant you that, but 8 receptions for 106 yards.
Herbert's playing well, I think.
I don't.
He's playing the Falcons, so you can't really
Yeah.
say that's a barometer.
The point is, on a game where they missed 1 and 2, and I never got to bring up with Gary my point from when we went to watch the Jazz game the other week, but on the fact they were missing numbers 1 and 2 and somebody still got over 100 yards. When we exited the Wembley Stadium the other week, some guys in front of us were arguing the fact that the Jags don't really have a number 1 receiver, they just have a load of number 3s. and I wished you were there to have that argument with them.
It's
It's not really an argument. I just all I do is Google the depth chart, which shows me I'm right because there will be a wide receiver run. You can disagree with it.
Yeah.
I can disagree on the fact that they are not worthy of that.
Yeah.
But it still exists.
It still exists. I know you're both right, and that's the annoying thing is you're both going to be absolute dicks about it. But
Do you want to talk about Tyler Algier?
yes,
10 carries, 99 yards. He is playing really well. He's an emerging running back that nobody seems to be talking about, and I don't really know why.
Because he plays for the Falcons.
but I really like the Falcons.
Do you know what?
I think they're one of the most fun offenses in the NFL this year.
Mariota missed a very open pass to Kyle Pitts to win this
It
game.
was
Yeah.
bad. Yeah.
Really, really bad. He was like, there was nobody within like 6 yards of him.
Yeah.
I agree.
But
And
luckily,
it wasn't even that far He should have made that pass.
This was one of Mariota's, if not the worst game that he's had this season. 12 of 23 for 129 and 24 yards rushing.
But
he didn't do any of the things well that he normally does.
he got his man back, didn't he? He's got Patterson.
Cordero Patterson.
It was a battle of two sort of brilliant running backs, really.
Yeah, Eckler's nearly touchdown was awesome until his elbow was just down.
Yeah. It was
That
the right decision.
It was epic, though. When you first saw it, you were like, wow, how has he done that?
Yeah, no, as well, I don't know, it's not whatever the opposite of Sweetest Player of the Week is, but the guy, it turns out it didn't matter anyway.
Oh,
when
the lineman.
Eckler fumbled, the lineman picked it up and then fumbled it again. And it's my favourite thing in football when the guy who's created the fumble then fumbles.
You love a double fumble.
Our double fumble is the best.
I've heard that about you, yeah, that you love a double fumble. I would like to point out the Falcons at 4 and 5 are joint top of their division.
Yeah.
That's right.
They also have more points than anyone else in the NFC South.
It's a terrible division.
And they have only the second worst points conceded, but they are comfortably leading there.
Well, we'll get on to the South in this second half of the podcast.
In this half we're in already.
Yes. But yeah.
We've got to rip the Raiders before we move on.
So the Raiders.
Jesus
Christ. Like I said last couple, was it 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, when they were 17 points up on the Chiefs and lost the game. I said that was an abysmal thing to do. And people said, oh, but it's the Chiefs. They were 17 points up on the Jags, and not the good Jags in like week 1, 2, 3. This is a Jags who were, have just lost to the Broncos, have looked really stagnant.
They've got ETN.
They have ETN. That is all they have.
I'm a big fan of ETN.
Yeah, so Etienne, and I'm going to pronounce it properly, 28 carries, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence was more to the point here. 25 of 31, 235 yards and a touchdown. No picks, wasn't sacked. They didn't touch him. They never got a hand on him. And that allowed him to be basically good enough to win the game.
Yeah. I mean, Max Crosby is obviously better than Nick Bosa.
Obviously.
But he didn't show it in this game.
No, he had 1 tackle for loss. But
you're not even a 49ers fan. Why are you on this bandwagon?
I'm just imagining Jim.
Devontae Adams must be going, like, I suppose, like, what is worse? Playing for this Raiders team or playing for the Packers? Like, literally, which one would have been worse?
Well, the first half, incredible.
Amazing. He had 2 touchdowns and 100+ yards by half time. He finished with 146 yards. I think he only had 2 receptions after half time.
Is it coaching? Because I cannot understand how the offense in particular can be so bad.
Well, I gather the offense is really difficult to grasp. I'm told that it's very tricky for players to pick it up. But we're now in week 9. If you can't get your team up to speed on your playbook by week 9, you're never winning anything.
Well, no, because you have to rewrite it for next season.
Exactly.
Yeah. Was Gruden right?
What, with his racism?
Not with that, or his sexism, or the fact that he was just shit.
It's going to be a long podcast.
But he quite clearly didn't trust Derek Carr.
This is not on Derek Carr.
No.
It's nothing to do with Derek Carr.
It's to do with coaching.
It's terrible coaching. The running game.
He was fucking abysmal last week, I will say.
When they lean on the running game, they look excellent. Jacobs this week, 67 yards. He was barely involved in the pass-catching game. They need to get every ounce they can out of Josh Jacobs, a bit like the Titans do with Henry.
Yep.
Without doing that, they don't have enough. Devontae Adams isn't enough to win it on his own. If he was, the Packers would have had Super Bowls in the last few years. So they've got to get more out of their star players, and I believe Josh Jacobs is that. I think that's the key. On the weeks when he's played really well, they've won games. They're now 2-6. They're 0-5 away from home. They are behind even the Broncos in the division. And there doesn't look like a way out. I haven't got their schedule in front of me. I'll just get up. But, I mean, how many more games do you realistically think the Raiders are going to win this season? Bearing in mind, it's been a crazy season for trying to predict who's doing what.
I've got their schedule here. Would you like to?
Yes, I would. Go ahead.
So, this weekend, they have the Colts.
Well, they should win that.
Let's give them
that one.
Then it's the Broncos.
Yeah, they should win that as well, but they won't.
Seahawks, Chargers, Rams, Patriots, Steelers, 49ers, then finishing with the Chiefs.
So
there's
two
about
more wins.
two or
Two more
three
wins.
more
So
wins.
realistically, they've got 2. So realistically, they could be finishing 4-13.
Wow.
That's realistic.
Yeah,
That would
Team
be,
that made the playoffs last year.
yeah, that would be
they are
absolute disaster.
in a year when a lot of big teams are not producing. These still might be one of the biggest disappointments. Is the fact that the Raiders are just appalling.
And they've released Jonathan Abram.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's another first-round pick out the window.
But
It's done well.
yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the NFC because the Eagles remain undefeated and in charge, making the most of their current soft schedule to beat the Houston Texans 29-17.
When you look at their schedule, they have played some turd.
They haven't really played much. They've had, they beat the Cowboys when it was Cooper Rush.
They have, when you actually look at the schedule, it is flattering.
Cooper Rush was 5-0 as a
Oh
start.
yeah, like I don't think we can go about the schedule. We'll get onto it, but yeah, is there much we can learn about this game because the Eagles never really had to leave second gear. It's the best team in the NFL against the worst team in the NFL, according to records. The schedule is soft, but
That's what you get for being shit for a few years.
yeah, but as well, like they have the best running offense in the league statistically. Last year, bizarrely, we were like, they don't have they had the best statistically running offense in the NFL in the last 20 years last year. They're really good on the ground. Hurts can now go through the air because he's got A.J. Brown, Goddard, Devontae Smith. The defense is Gardner Johnson has 5 picks in the last 5 games. He had 5 picks in his career at the Saints before this. They're just making big plays.
Yeah,
I think they need to lose at some point. I think it would be really good because then you don't have the sort of pressure of going into the playoffs as an unbeaten team.
Yeah, I think there's too many games. I don't think they'll go in undefeated.
Yeah,
I'd like them to lose the Super Bowl, having won every other game before that.
I'm not sure they'll make the Super Bowl still. I'm still not on that train, I have to admit.
I've obviously gone big on the Eagles, and I would like them to win the Super Bowl.
You'd like them to win the Super Bowl
because then
That was his pick.
But I know, but Burn is Giants. He is a Giants.
only
fan
because then
overall.
I'd win £200. Coming up, they have the Commanders. They have the Colts. They have the Packers. Then they have the Titans.
You could argue the Packers are the worst team out of those.
Not with the Colts. Giants, Bears, Cowboys, Saints, Giants. There are some losable games there. There are some very easily winnable games. This team's
They'll
already
probably
in the
end up
playoffs.
for 14-3, something like that. Yeah, they're
Probably.
definitely in the playoffs.
They're in the playoffs.
Oh, definitely.
But yeah,
Yeah, we don't learn anything.
don't learn anything. The Texans are still shit.
The Texans are terrible. Damon Pierce deserves praise. 6th overall in the league for yards this season. If they can get more touchdowns out of him, bearing in mind he's only got 3, then he's in with a shout of Offensive Rookie of the Year. He probably won't win it because Kenneth Walker, because then name your wide receiver. He's in the running for a running back, but he's the only positive for their season. They didn't have Brandon Cooks in this game, despite not trading him. He's basically threatened to expose the team for something. Who knows?
He's
They're not a
threatening
team known for exposures, are they, the Texans?
That'd be terrible, wouldn't it?
I mean, he's in danger of voiding his contract at the moment, which would mean he'd lose $18 million.
He's made plenty,
I know,
and he'll get picked up somewhere else. But yeah, you didn't learn anything about either team here. The only concern for me is the Eagles didn't blow them away, which they should have done. They were matched for point scoring in the first half. It was 14 all at half time. And they only really walked away when they scored 8 in the fourth quarter, and the Texans didn't get on the score sheet. So that would be the only slight flag for me, is that I thought the Eagles, this should have been a 40-point win. This is the sort of game you want to see them stamp their authority on it. Eagles completely undefeated, best team in the league. Texans 1-6-1 now, worst team in the league. You want to see the Eagles crush them and say, we are the best team in the league. And they didn't really do that. 29-17 is...
It's
the
fine.
game was so close that it wasn't as bad for the Texans as it should have been, but that by default means it wasn't as good for the Eagles as it should have been.
It's a Thursday night game as well, and it is the Texans. They can just do it in second gear. Let's see where they're going in week 14. So hot on the heels of the Eagles are the Vikings, who have another of the 2017 games. They had a mad game against the Washington Clangers, where the refs claim an assist for Curtis Samuel's touchdown.
It was amazing.
Brilliant. Love watching it. But so the Vikings take control of the North. They are 4 games ahead of the previously mentioned Bears and the Green Bay Packers, who lost 15-9 to the Detroit Lions.
Possibly the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Aaron Rodgers seems to be keen to blame anyone but himself. He was continuously picked or underthrew important passes. On the sideline, he looks increasingly frustrated. I know, we're not journalists, so we don't have to be neutral. This is fucking hilarious. At one point, Griff had to leave the room. I was watching the game with Michael. He had to take a phone call. He had to end that phone call because I was laughing so much at Aaron Rodgers throwing a pick off a lineman's helmet.
Yeah. And then shouting at himself and the wide receivers, just catch the effing ball. And you think, well, you just threw it into the face of a D lineman.
Aiming for David Bakhtiari.
Well, him and Sammy Watkins are just not on the same wavelength.
No.
Expected him to go outside, he's going inside. Like, he still threw the ball to, nobody. It's just, it's bad. It's so bad.
And it's amazing. I think if you said to a Packers fan at the beginning of this season, what's the worst thing that could happen to you? It's losing pace to the Vikings and losing to the Lions. It's been amazing.
But they've lost to the Commanders, the Lions,
the Giants,
the Jets.
Yeah. But actually losing to the Jets...
They've lost 5 games in a row.
Yeah.
Is that the first time in Aaron Rodgers'
since
career?
2008, the first year that Mike McCarthy was in charge, was the last time they lost 5 in a row. And they ended that season losing 5 in a row and then winning the final game of the season to send the Lions 0-16. That is how they did it. But they lost 5 of the last 6. It's just... We've never seen this while we've been doing this podcast. They've never been this bad. And the problem is you can't see how they suddenly adjust and get better. Okay, we've had a laugh at Aaron Jones in the past after Gary said he was rubbish. But how is he only getting 9 carries?
Yeah.
The passing game isn't working. The Lions can't defend shit. They couldn't defend the 4 of us. And yet...
They obviously don't think that he is Aaron Jones of 2 years ago.
I worry that it's now got to a point where, Rodgers wants him in the passing game because he gets a lot of targets in the passing game. Last week, I think he had 11 targets. Because he doesn't trust the wide receivers, they're now fumbling.
And AJ Dillon keeps fumbling.
AJ Dumblin keeps... Fucking hell.
Jesus.
AJ Dillon keeps fumbling. Rodgers actually said in the press conference that that what he's having to do is scramble more. And you're like, no, hand it to the fucking running back who's brilliant.
They've got Dillon and Jones, who are both excellent running backs, and they had 20 carries between them, but they're not. They should absolutely be piling on. They weren't miles behind in this game at any point. And why is Aaron Rodgers, who's having the worst season of his career, throwing 43 times?
But there's a big difference for me here, and if we're not being neutral, Aaron Rodgers needs to stop being a whiny little bitch.
Well, and this is the problem.
Because if you take what Mahomes is doing... There we go. If you take what Mahomes is doing with the Chiefs, 68 times he was asked to drop back and pass. He didn't come out and blame anybody for... All right, they won in overtime, but he just got out and started passing to his receivers.
Josh Allen's the same. He came out and said, well, you can't win in this league if I play like crap.
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers didn't do that. He came out and threw everyone under the bus and said, well, I'm having to scramble more. The point is, every week that he slags off the wide receiving crew is a week when they're going to be more nervous. They're all thinking, am I keeping my job? The second part of this is, why did Devontae Adams leave? he was onto a good thing in Green Bay, right?
They didn't have any money to pay him.
Right,
Because to my previous
paid
point,
Rodgers.
because they paid Rodgers. So what they've done is they've sacrificed a team that could have gone to the Super Bowl, because every year they've won 13 games the last 3 years. They were eventually going to get over the 49ers in the playoffs at some point, maybe. Just luck of the draw.
No.
And now all they've done is shot themselves in the
There might have
foot.
been a year where the Niners didn't make
but
it.
They shot themselves in the foot, saddled themselves with a guy on the downswing of his career, because he is.
They should have let Rodgers go.
Yeah, they should. And they should have kept someone like Devontae Adams, or they should have found a way to keep him, because this is just showing you that if you take away an elite number one wide receiver and just give someone like Aaron Rodgers a bunch of guys, it's not that he can't elevate players. He can, but as soon as he decides he doesn't like them, like he likes to throw to Alan Lazard, but Alan Lazard is then defended. So he only had 4 receptions for 87 yards, but the Lions just put everything they got on Alan Lazard and said, throw to someone else. Well, it doesn't work.
No.
You can't do that. Romeo Doubs 1 for 18. I think he was then injured. Sammy Watkins, like you say, all right, he's never been a great wide receiver, but on this team, looking at the list of players, by name alone, Sammy Watkins should be getting more than 1 for 9.
It's partly because Sammy Watkins is a field stretcher
Didn't
and he
Aaron
doesn't
Jones-
want to throw.
Aaron Jones left injured as well, didn't he?
I don't know.
Didn't they have like
He's-
4 or
he's-
5
he's knocked
players?
up. He's knocked
4 or
up.
5 players left on crutches.
John was about to make the point.
Rashawn Gary was injured as well. There's 4 or 5 people left in boots or on crutches this week.
The issue I mentioned to Griff on the day, it's Rodgers is he's protecting his stats now, and actually his stats have never been worse. He doesn't want a Sammy Watkins who's going to run 40 yards down the field, because that's
Too much risk.
Too much risk. What he wants is a Michael Thomas or a Julio Jones who's going to be 8 yards away, and make the safe catch. He hasn't got that. He doesn't trust the people he's got. It's unequivocally hilarious. And I'm sorry, I know that you might be Packers fans listening to this. I actually like the Packers as an organisation, but just what you've done to protect this dickhead is fucking hilarious.
I mean, also, is it his job to build a relationship with his wideouts? Because you take Josh Allen with the Bills, right? There was that footage that came out the weekend of he had a handshake with each individual receiver. So he's built a relationship.
We are 9 games into the 2022 season, right? Aaron Rodgers has 7 interceptions. When was the last time he had 7 interceptions in a full season?
Well, the last 3 seasons he's gone 5, 4, and 3. I think something like that.
4, 5, 4.
Right,
In 2018, he had 2.
Yeah, it must be
2017. He only played 7 games. He had 6.
10 years ago.
2016, he had 7. So 2015, he had 8 in 16 games, and only once before that, in 2012, did he have 8. His worst season ever was 2008.
He had 3 in one game this week.
3 in one game this week. He had 40 touchdowns to 1 interception against the NFC North coming into today, in the last 4 years, or whatever it was. He then got picked off 3 times, twice in the end zone.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And they weren't good throws. And then the Lions, who've done nothing this season, managed to find, 20 yards of space for Zylstra to score his touchdown? There was no Packers defender that was within touching distance.
It was like remind me of the COVID days. He was so
it was isolated.
so socially distanced from everyone else. It was, he could catch the ball on his arse sliding. Brilliant. A lot of people are going, well, I don't see it. I know. What if I can see him retiring at the end of the year. So if he retires, it's as if he's been cut. So the dead money on his contract will still count. Do you know how much the dead money is if he retires this?
120 million.
It's $99.7 million on dead money. If he retires this summer, they can't afford that. They'd need to make him sign a contract to redo his contract. Like I think they did for Breeze did that. But of course, Breeze liked the Saints. He had a relationship with them. It's. I'm sorry, but it's how you can kick yourself in the face as much as they're doing it this year is hilarious. I'm sorry.
Like I say, it's funny that the Lions are now 1 game back from the Packers.
Oh, Dan Campbell. The man. It was just nice to hear him in the interview afterwards not be sad.
We didn't talk much about the Commanders game with the Vikings.
No. We can move on to that. Yeah.
But Kirk Cousins, anyone see him on the plane?
Yeah.
Wearing everybody's gold chain? It was ridiculous. Yeah. I don't know what that dance was supposed to be, but it was very funny.
Being the whitest man on earth.
He threw an absolutely beautiful touchdown pass to the back of the end zone. Absolutely stunning.
When Cousins is on, he's a really nice quarterback to watch. You know, it's also, you know, we mentioned the Eagles not winning as much as I'd like to have seen the Vikings blow away this Commanders team, because this Commanders team isn't good.
No. I'd quite like to see the Vikings-Eagles play, because I think they're two quite closely matched teams.
I think they should be. What I liked most about the Vikings this week was they got TJ Hawkinson, who they just traded for, and they immediately got him in. 9 receptions, 70 yards. He was involved in every single offensive play. Yep. This guy needs to be unlocked. I think he's a top 5 tight end for this league. And I think they could get something special out of him. They've been missing a tight end. They've had Irv Smith, who's done about as much as Paul.
Well,
If
Paul's injured.
They had Kyle Rudolph, who was injured, but good.
Well, he was good.
But injured.
Good and then got old.
Yeah.
So they need this. I think it really elevates the offense to another level.
I like the
Justin
trade.
Jefferson is just amazing.
I mean, you know, I think it's going to cost him like $12 million for a year and a half of a decent tight end. Great, you know, worth the risk. Okay, so with the Falcons and the Saints losing and the Panthers barely turning up, the Bucs take the lead of the NFC South with a tight 16-13 win over the Los Angeles Rams, who, last I checked, are apparently the defending Super Bowl champions. Will anyone from the South, though, end up with a winning record?
Yeah, because the Bucs have got to play the other teams enough.
Yeah.
That's basically
That's it. Yeah, the Bucs.
Shall I tell you what it was about this game? This game was awful, right?
Yeah.
So the scoring was 3 points in the first quarter, 10 in the second, 6 points in the third, and eventually 10 in the fourth.
Haven't the Bucs not scored like a first quarter touchdown season?
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
I don't think they've scored on an opening drive yet this season.
But I don't think they scored a touchdown in the first quarter.
Right.
They are terrible.
It's not been good.
Both these teams are bad.
But this game, the highlight in this game anyway, was the fact that for the last minute and whatever, no, less than a minute, 48 seconds or whatever it was that Brady had when they got the ball back, looked like prime Tom Brady. I get it. It was Father Time, he's catching him up. He's also had all these other distractions and the team isn't as good. But come on now. Like, that drive in the last 40-odd seconds was incredible. And yes, he got another defensive pass interference call in the end zone when they were right up against it. But that's what he does. He leads the players into defensive players. It was peak Tom Brady, and you just got a flash of why he came back. Like, he loved that. Give me 42 seconds, I can win the game.
So what you're saying is we just need to put him under pressure. So surely just before kickoff at the start of every game, Tom, a divorce lawyer is here to see you. He's going to see you at half time.
We talked about this Sunday. You're like, because I fucking hate the GOAT talk. But the thing with Brady still is in those flashes, he does it and he backs it up.
He's the most clutch player. He's the opposite to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Well, you have to mention he's passed for over 100,000 yards.
Yeah, we should mention that.
That will never be beaten.
Something else that I saw about this weekend. So by week 9 last year, at the end of week 9 last year, the Bucs and the Rams between them had 40 touchdowns. This year they have 18 passing. Sorry, Brady and Stafford had 40 touchdowns between them. They have 18 between them this year. Stafford also has 8 picks. Brady actually is leading the league. He's only been picked off once, which is in itself quite impressive. But what we're seeing here is the lack of passing game for the Rams, because Stafford is basically being caught with no one to throw to. The teams know, okay, Allen Robinson isn't performing, so all we've got to do is go out there and take his one good pass-catching player off the field, Cooper Kupp, which They had 22 pass plays that didn't go to Cooper Kupp, and they totaled 9 yards.
Jesus.
Appalling.
So all you have to do, and I'm not saying it's easy to cover Cooper Kupp, but if Cooper Kupp gets 10 receptions and 100 yards and a touchdown, you've done your job. Because
And Cooper Kupp is injured as well. Like he's playing on an injury.
Yeah.
And apparently OBJ is not coming back at the moment. because
Why
would you?
Well, not only that, apparently the contract, he said, doesn't reflect his worth to the team. So
He-
they're trying to get him on the cheap, basically.
He will be medically cleared this week, so he can, if he comes, gets signed up, he can just join.
Giants, apparently, John.
I've heard the Cowboys today.
I heard the
Cowboys would be big.
He's a master of the media. He's been linked with, this is week 9 different leading teams. He just turns up somewhere every week and gets.
Yeah, he's on the
linked.
telly in a different stadium.
It's genius.
Cooper Kupp, 8 receptions, 127 yards. Allen Robinson, 3 receptions, 24. And then you've got Malcolm Brown and Brandon Powell, 1 each, and no one else had a reception.
John was big on
I was
Allen
big on it.
Robinson.
I'm still think Allen Robinson is a talented player. I think the Rams are having an absolutely shocking year.
I think these two teams show you the power of good O-line, because you look at the Bucks lost they lost Pro
Ryan
Bowl
Jensen,
Pro Bowl guard, Pro Bowl center.
Yeah. Both Pro Bowl guards.
The Rams lost the Rams lost probably Hall
Whitworth,
of Famer.
The Bucks lost Tristan Wirfs as well.
Yeah.
I'd also say that if you put Miles Sanders in either of these teams, they'd be more effective because neither of them.
Leonard Fournette's terrible.
Leonard Fournette, 9 for 19, but he was made to look positively
9
excellent.
for 19.
No. He was made to look positively excellent by Cam Akers. Did you see what he got? 5 carries for 3 yards.
He's been injured and they don't want him.
Well,
And he's been out. They have been telling him to
leave.
get a trade. Leave him in the practice squad. It's. I also think that is possibly bad management because if you don't have a rusher and you're basically telling this one, fuck off. What is the confidence and motivation for him?
without looking, can any of you name the guy who got the touchdown reception for the win for the Bucks?
Otton,
What's his first name?
Kyle
Mister.
No, Cade.
Cade.
And there's a reason you didn't know that. It's because, who's Cade Otton? He's actually had 23 receptions for 246 yards this year. That was his first touchdown. But
And we also mentioned the Scotty Miller drop.
it was beautiful.
It was. I was falling asleep by this point, and then I heard that. And I'm like,
It
whoa.
was, but then, see, here's the thing. If you do that on the Packers, Aaron Rodgers is never throwing you the ball again.
But yeah.
Tom Brady was looking for him again straight away. He had 7 receptions, 53 yards, and was the second best receiver on the team.
Yeah.
This is the thing. Brady gets frustrated, takes it out on an iPad, and then goes back out in the field and is a professional. Rodgers gets frustrated, takes it out on everyone else, and then doesn't want to play, just wants to go home. And those two things just don't add up. You can't do that and be a winning quarterback.
Agree. So, someone has to be featured last. And this week, the Seahawks, only because they continue to be routinely excellent. They beat the Cardinals 31-21 and take a 2-game lead in the NFC West. And they're on a 4-game winning streak. Looking forward, where can this Seahawks team finish this year? Because they are just surprisingly good.
Does anybody think they won't win the NFC West?
I think they're gonna. They could do this.
I think
comfortably.
it'll become. I think it won't be
2 games ahead.
2 games. I think you've got a game in hand.
You've got a game in hand. Yeah, you've had your bye. I think the Seahawks will win the NFC West.
Same
I think
as
the Niners could still.
you both go.
win.
You both get in the playoffs, but
If CMC is, as good as he was last game, then the Niners will run them close.
yeah, I don't think it'll be miles away. But I think because
If you had to say now, I would say the Seahawks will win the division, but still a lot of games to play.
there's so many bad teams in the NFC this year, they're both in the playoffs.
I mean, also,
It's a lock as far as I'm concerned. But I think the Seahawks might just sneak a win there.
we have to give credit to the Seahawks for how they drafted. And I know we did it last week, but each week they've brought pieces in who've performed fantastically well.
Yeah, it's been brilliant.
In the last 4 games, Kenneth Walker's been the start running back for the Seahawks. They've won all 4 games. He has over 400 rushing yards and 6 rushing touchdowns. Because Geno just has to look after the ball, matriculate them down the field, and then hand it off to Kenneth Walker, and they score. It seems to be a given every week. That is exactly what Pete Carroll is so hard. That is doing more for him than Viagra. He is loving this, and now the Seahawks defense is actually good.
Yeah,
like it's actually good. This is what they need. Like we all thought, DeAndre Hopkins comes back, the Cardinals will be all right. No, because Kyler Murray isn't very good.
No, but you can't judge them on this game.
I haven't got to. I've seen their record and I've seen them play this season. They're 3-6.
DeAndre Hopkins makes them better.
He does make them a lot better.
But all he's doing is making them viable as potentially like still being in games. It's not fun to watch the Cardinals. They aren't like they're still not running it. Like there's mistakes as well. Like how early in the game was it when they snapped the ball over? I know it's easy to snap the ball over
twice over Kyler's head. Yeah,
you know it's. As I'm saying, there's so many bad teams in the
Kyler
NFC.
had 100 fewer passing yards than Geno Smith off the same number of attempts.
In the year,
Kyler was 25 of 35. Geno was 26 of 34.
Geno looks totally passable as a quarterback, which is just like weird.
Geno is playing with no pressure.
He also has 2 excellent wide receivers.
And also, he has Noah Fant, who I don't think gets anywhere near enough credit for what he does to that team.
He's not a leading tight end, but he's good enough.
He's an option.
He was the leading receiver on the day.
I'm furious because I picked up Kenneth Walker in most of the drafts early on, but then dropped him because, of course, Richard Penny was brilliant. And so you can thank me for not. Within 2 weeks, I dropped Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker. So you can all thank me if you've got picked them up in our leagues.
Buda Baker had 11 tackles in this game, and now he's out injured for the Cardinals.
Fucking hell, yeah.
Which doesn't help them at all. But yeah, what the point I was making was, Geno is averaging over 8 yards per play. Kyler is averaging 5. He's not a quarterback that's going to make your team better. He makes you win random games because he'll just do something amazing.
But they have to decide.
So did Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Play to his strengths. Then they're not doing it.
Let him run more.
He had 8 carries for 60 yards.
You need to have a good run game around him to create the space for him to run.
And they don't have that.
And it's not their run game isn't working this year like it did last year, and that's why they've fallen off.
They should embrace the chaos and just let him scamper about like a little dickhead.
It worked for years for Russell Wilson, and then they tried to constrain him, and it doesn't work.
Yeah,
no.
Cook. A lot of these offensive coordinators are seemingly doing their best to actually make their offensive players worse this year, it seems.
What do you like doing? I like scrambling. Yeah, you ain't doing that.
Yeah, no, I like passing. So, it's appalling. Anyway, that's all the games covered. So, we're going into the Week 10 games. So, on the bye this week are the Ravens, the Bengals, the Patriots, and the Jets. So, you can watch this weekend.
I can have a week off stressing about Mac Jones being rubbish. Yeah.
Yep. So you can now stress over Mariota being rubbish as well.
Yeah.
Looking into any of the games, wetting your whistle. Of course, we have the Seahawks Bucks on Sunday, which is a first game in Germany. So this is in Munich, which of course
kickoff.
2:30 kickoff. Of course, it doesn't. Is it much of a surprise that the week they've gone to Munich, they've got rid of Reich? He's not listening.
I mean, what, Frank Reich?
Yeah.
He might be. He's not doing anything else now, is he?
But no,
that is quite funny that they've done that. I hadn't twigged that.
But yeah, like in terms of records, Vikings Bills is quite an obvious contender for.
If the Bills lose that, then that division becomes wide open.
It'd be lovely if they lose that. That'd be great.
Chargers Niners could be a good game.
Yeah. So I actually quite like the look of the Seattle Tampa because I think Seattle will win.
Yeah,
I do. I think Geno Smith and the Seahawks defense beats Tom Brady and the Bucks right now.
Cowboys Packers should be prime time.
Yeah, Should be.
I bet that's game of the week.
Return of Mike McCarthy to Green Bay.
Yeah.
And
It'll be funny.
busted. But yeah.
So here's a stinker for the week then. Colts at Vegas.
Oh, it's going to be so bad, isn't it?
It could be awful. If the Raiders lose that game, what does that do for Josh McDaniels' career hopes?
End it, hopefully.
It'll be done.
I think so as well. I think they have to win this game against a rudderless, a Jeff Saturday-led Colts.
Yeah. I mean, being the Raiders, I'm sure they'll take a 17-0 lead at some point. It's just then, can the Colts score 18 points? And I doubt it.
True.
Yeah, it's... but, yeah, there's... obviously, it lines Bears in the north to sort of take over the Packers in second place.
There's also a winner just about stays on match. So Arizona at Los Angeles Rams. The loser of that is never making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Absolutely done. I mean, they're both on the fringe. The loser of that game is out. We will stick a fork in them. It's all over.
And I'd put if I was a betting man, I'd put money on Arizona to win that game over Los Angeles.
I wouldn't.
I really don't know. That one's too tight to call. I'll call it a tie.
Yeah.
Go on. 21-all. Tie.
But yeah, so that's something to look forward to. Paul, you got a Cleveland frown?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Indianapolis because obviously this is Paul's thumb in a pun, but I ended up kind of with a list of puns.
Oh, no.
Because just the thing I couldn't get my head around and the thing that really frustrated me is why did they keep him this season? That's a team with a dearth of talent within it. Only ever made the playoffs as a wild card, and last season made seemingly every effort to get as close to the playoffs and not get in there. So to get Andrew Luck back, fantastic. The way he left, there's a reason that happened. If the coaching was good enough, I feel he would have stayed. So, they're shit out of luck. So he then goes and gets the quarterback he wants with Carson Wentz. All right, I know there's Rivers before that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make a point.
We don't need a point history.
You don't need me to crap on Rivers. So they bring in Carson Wentz, which doesn't work. I don't understand how it was going to work based on his play, based on what he was doing previously in Philly. So that came and went. And it got me to a point
He's
where
still doing this.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Go on.
I get the feeling now it was exactly the right decision, but I don't know why they've given him this season to give him the Colt shoulder and get him on your right.
On your right. Oh, wow.
But again, I maintain that how would you get to a position where you kept him this long?
Because Jim Irsay had some faith in a guy who looked like he could turn around quarterbacks, but ultimately it hasn't worked. I think they've made the right move. It's sad for Frank Reich, and maybe somewhere else it will work, but perhaps he isn't the quarterback guru that we thought he was. It was just lightning in a bottle when it worked.
The Indianapolis Dolts. And on
that's why you don't do that segment.
Sweetest player of the week?
Sweetest player of the week, yes, of course, brought to us by Toot Sweets .shop.
I'm voting for the Dolphins blocked punt returned for a touchdown by Rip Van Ginkel.
I was going for the same thing.
I was going for the Kirk Cousins to Dalvin Cook.
That was lovely. That was lovely catch as well.
Paul, you want to throw anything?
Quite a lot of defense lately.
I am going to go for Rip Van Ginkel.
Yeah, it's a good name.
Van Ginkel.
I feel he's winning on that, but it was the fact that they returned it a long way, and the guy that actually blocked it wasn't Rip Van Ginkel.
No.
It was a lineman who blocked it with
his dick.
Yeah, somewhere in his midriff, I believe is the phrase you're supposed to use. So, yeah, good for him. Why not? And a quick shout before we leave. Bobby Wagner. Did anybody see Bobby Wagner
jump the line?
Hurdle the line and block a field goal?
That could have been Sweetest player of the week. That was very good.
I mean, I might walk back my Van Ginkel. If everybody would be on board with Bobby Wagner here, I could take my
I had forgot Bobby Wagner.
I had also forgotten this. Did you see it, Paul?
Yeah, that's...
He hurdled the line without touching anyone. He timed it perfectly. That is so hard to do in the league now. Bear in mind, they took out that play where you could touch the centre because of him.
Yeah.
And he absolutely timed it perfectly. So I'd like to walk back Van Ginkel, as much as I love the name, and give it to Bobby Wagner, if I may.
Yeah. And then...
Agreed.
One last thing we didn't discuss was that a lot of news this week that the trade deadline, a lot of teams want it pushed back with the season being slightly longer now. They want to know if they've basically got a chance of winning this year before they trade. So there's a lot of teams asking that the trade deadline moves back to week 12.
Fair enough. I can
just
see
one to watch. That's all.
As well, it looks like the Commanders are going to be sold
They've
at some
brought in
point.
somewhat a consultancy firm. haven't they?
We'll talk about that as it progresses. At the moment, it's just all conjecture. But until then, until next week, we'll see you then. And have a good week. Bye, guys.